This e-lecture is part of the series looking at the 6-step model and focuses on step 2, conducting a situational assessment. There's a broad range of resources on the Blackboard site, including a series of extra normal animations and the handout around the 6-step planning model. But again, I'd like to kindly acknowledge the contribution of the Health Communications Unit at the University of Toronto, on which this lecture is very much based. So, conducting a situational assessment. A situational assessment will really underpin your intervention. It will help you to ask those key questions in terms of the needs and the strengths of the population with which you are working. It tends to be broad in scope and looks at a much bigger picture, including the legal and political environment where your intervention will be taking place, at the stakeholders who might be involved and the resources that they might bring to that. It might consider the health needs of the population. It will encapsulate the literature. So what does the literature say is the best practice or the challenges facing your particular population with whom you're working? It will also include previous evaluations that are undertaken in a similar area. And really, it will inform your overall vision for the project. In essence, it's very much the same as a needs assessment. However, the problem with a needs assessment is it tends to focus on problems and difficulties, whereas a situational assessment is more wide-ranging and also takes into account the strengths and assets of individuals and communities, which is very much in keeping with the philosophy of this approach. In terms of good practice when undertaking such an assessment, the important thing is to involve the identified participants as much as possible. Ensure that you're organised, so make the most of your time collecting readily available information and preparing a clear focus or agenda for any meetings of stakeholders whose time might be more limited. Use a process not just as a way of collecting information, but also in building partnerships with others who have experience in interpreting or gathering data. Focus on strengths, capacities and resources, not just on deficits and problems. And also thinking about the broader picture of what workplace wellbeing actually means, rather than thinking about health just in terms of the absence of disease. It's also very useful to actually list the individuals and organisations with an interest in this type of project or area of concern, and describe the views of stakeholders in relation to your intended project. So, for example, looking at who supports this, who opposes it, who has clear ideas what it will is about, who has a vision or a kind of a heart for what you're doing. Don't forget about the literature. What has your own or other people's experiences revealed? Look at research about projects, communities and issues related to the priority issue. So what does the literature say about employability? Again, go back to previous evaluations and findings of similar projects and review the literature regarding similar types of projects and recommendations for future designs. Collect your data about your priority issue, and that might include demographic data, health behaviour and practices if available, sickness levels, injuries at work, information regarding barriers to employment, basically anything that will really inform what you're about to do. And finally, review the existing policies and underpinning values and beliefs. So you need to look at a broad range of information, including policies, guidelines and agendas. Finally, look at your own vision and the visions of others who are involved in the planning process so that you can come up with relevant strategic plans. And consider the political, economic, environmental, social and technological factors that could actually impact on or affect your project. Identify any information gaps and plan how you're going to address those.